everyone, and welcome to Candidate Conversations. I'm Kristine Johnson. CBSN New York is holding in-depth conversations with the 2021 New Jersey gubernatorial candidates. Joining me now for today's conversation is Democratic candidate and incumbent Governor Phil Murphy. Governor, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Kristine. Good to be here.
You know, I know everyone is top of mind with COVID and this pandemic, but I want to start on the subject of abortion because you have said that this is going to be #1 on your agenda should you be reelected as governor. Currently, there is a bill, the Reproductive Freedom Act, that would expand eligibility for late-term abortions. It would also guarantee women's rights to require insurance to pay for this, and overall just allow women to have the right to have an abortion. There is talk now, though, that this bill is going to be pared down. Will you still support that bill? I know that you've been fighting for all of those details on this campaign trail.
Yeah, so Kristine, on this one, just take a step back. A woman's reproductive freedom in New Jersey is based entirely right now as we sit here on case law. And that case law is entirely premised on Roe v. Wade. So with the Trump appointees to the U.S. Supreme Court, the decision they've already taken in Texas, and the expectation of decisions they will take going forward, all of those freedoms are at risk. So the big point here is we have to put this into statute, into a law that I will sign. So as you rightfully point out, this is among, if not our highest priority after the election. And I want this to be as strong and as robust as possible. This should be a decision, as sober or somber as it is, entirely left between a woman and her doctor, period. And we're committed to getting this thing done as soon as we can.
But would you agree to accept this pared down version and not require insurance companies to pay for this procedure? Also loosen the restrictions on later stage abortions, and also define that fertilized eggs, embryos, fetuses do not have the independent rights?
Again, my strong hope and expectation is that this is as robust and as strong as possible. That's where I've been, and that's where I'll continue to be on this, on all those questions.
Now, there are commercials running right now during this campaign political season, and it is alleging that your competitor, Jack Ciattarelli, is not for women's rights, is not for the women's right to an abortion. Now, he has said that he does support and agrees with codifying the right to abortion. Do you think that that ad is misleading?
I don't know about the ad, but I will say this, and I believe this is a quote or as close to a quote as I can get you. He has said, he's on record as saying President Trump's greatest legacy were his 3 picks to the U.S. Supreme Court. So that's all you need to know in terms of where he is in general, but specific to a woman's reproductive freedoms. And I think that speaks overwhelmingly for itself.
And then just in your opinion, how serious is this issue for women's rights in general?
Huge. This is a huge issue. I'm incredibly proud of the agenda that we've prosecuted over the past almost 4 years on behalf of women, whether that's women's health or more broadly equal pay for equal work, a majority women cabinet, all the steps that we've taken. But this is a huge deal. I think some folks thought this was kind of theoretical. It was abstract. That's no longer the case. With the 3 Supreme Court picks that President Trump made, with the decision in Texas, this is a clear and present danger. We cannot run the risk that those reproductive freedoms are taken away in New Jersey.
All right, moving on now to a topic that's on everyone's minds. When we've done polls, and I've read polls where COVID and the pandemic is still top of mind. It's still a priority for so many people and our voters here in New Jersey. Vaccines, the mandates, the mask requirements. Why not go ahead and instill an absolute vaccine mandate for everyone in the state, for companies, similar to what New York City has done?
That's certainly still an option on the table, but we think where we are right now is a good place, which is requiring state workers, educators, et cetera, to get vaccinated, if not face multiple tests a week. Masking is mandated in our school buildings. That does not bring me any joy, but that's clearly the right thing we need to do, at least for now, and I hope that's not forever and for always. But we have always kept every option on the table. This pandemic, this virus, is very humbling. Every time you think you got to figure it out, it takes a turn you don't expect. So all options remain on the table. We are among, if not the most vaccinated state in America. We have the lowest number of COVID patients in our ICU beds of any American state. So at least for the time being, we think the package that's in place is the right one.
When you say where we are now, if things do happen to worsen, if the numbers start to go back up again, if the hospitalizations start to go back up again, if the number of deaths start to go back up again, are you prepared to possibly change your mind and mandate that vaccine?
If this thing takes a wrong turn, all options have to be on the table, sadly. And we've seen that it has in the past. At the moment, we're making very good progress, and I hope, please God, that continues.
Now, you are requiring, if I'm not mistaken, Governor, because this was new out yesterday, I believe, you are requiring all state contractors that do business with the state to be vaccinated, correct?
That is correct. On all new contracts effective yesterday, that is correct.
So why implement that restriction and not for the others? Meaning,
well, it's just,
other state workers, police departments.
Yeah, so two things, Kristine. Number one, it's the same standard as state workers. So requiring vaccinations or the testing, multiple tests per week. And secondly, the timing, why this week? That's because we began aggressively calling back in our state workforce. We're going to do this in a phased way over the next number of weeks, but that started this week. So that's the status. You're putting them on the same footing as the state workers.
And as far as Election Day goes, you did temporarily put a ban on masks being required to wear in schools at those polling stations. How did you come to that decision and why?
Well, among other things, you're God willing, you're inside for a very limited amount of time. Unlike a school day where you are there for the entirety of the day. And by the way, at schools, you've also got kids still, as we sit here, who are under the age of 12, who are not eligible. Everybody who's voting is eligible, both poll workers and voters. And we felt we could take that step. The 21 counties are implementing it, and they've done a great job preparing for this. We have early in-person voting for the first time beginning this Saturday. So this is upon us, and we think we've got the right protocols in place.
But you mentioned that children are unvaccinated because they're not eligible, but how are we going to keep them safe if there are people in their buildings without masks on?
They won't be in the same spaces. So the schools that are open, you don't, that's not just because of the pandemic, it's always the case. The kids are not in the polling place inside those buildings, and that'll continue to be the case.
Okay. Booster shots. We've been hearing a lot about that recently. The FDA has made some progress authorizing some of those for some certain groups of people. What plans do you have in place for go ahead and rolling out those booster shots so that we don't have issues with people not being able to make appointments and even supply chain issues? Do you anticipate any of those problems?
We may have short-term challenges, but we're already rolling out the Pfizer booster. And if anything, Kristine, I'm concerned about less demand than I was expecting. So we've got plenty of supply, and the same will be true with J&J and Moderna when they are live and ready to go, and the doses for the kids under the age of 12. So we've been, as I mentioned earlier, we've been very, very strong on vaccinations generally. I expect that to continue with the boosters. I'm more concerned right now that there are too many people who are eligible right now as we speak who are not getting them, and that's something we got to continue to message and encourage people to get the booster and get further protected.
Why is that, do you think?
I think there were some mixed messages out of the federal government. I think people may be a little bit complacent because they haven't gotten sick, and it looks like we're chasing the Delta variant down. So we're out there pounding away to make sure folks understand that they have a meaningfully stronger protection with the boosters than without it, and we'll continue to pound away on that.
Public opinion has been in support of how you have handled the pandemic since its inception. However, critics do point out that there were approximately 8,000 deaths in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. You know, looking back, what went wrong there? And is there an investigation still into that matter?
Yeah, so in terms of this has been, let me back up and say, New Jersey got clobbered. We paid an enormous price in this pandemic, over 27,000 losses of life. And the tragedy within the tragedy certainly was in long-term care, including our blessed veterans. And this hit New York and New Jersey, again, March, April, May of 2020, absolutely clobbered with no playbook, waking up every day, trying to do the best job we could to get folks, to keep them alive and keep them healthy. There will be a complete postmortem on the entirety of the COVID response in our state, and that will include long-term care without question. I can't speak for the Attorney General, but there were certain operators that were being at least fined, if not pursued, as a law enforcement matter. I have no insight into that. It's an independent process led by the Attorney General. We were clear in our guidance, but that does not mean there were certain operators who ignored that guidance. But bless the loss of life. Again, not really unique to New Jersey, sadly, but we got clobbered, especially with long-term care residents.
Will another part of that postmortem also look at those unemployment checks that had such a hard time reaching people's bank accounts during the height of this pandemic?
Yeah, I don't think we're waiting for that, for the end of the pandemic to look at that. And I don't want to make light of anybody who right now is frustrated because they didn't get their check. We were hit by a tsunami of claims, and I know this won't make anyone feel better if they're still out there trying to get what's rightfully theirs. No American state dealt with this at a higher level than New Jersey. And again, that's not to say it wasn't frustrating, but everybody got hit. And our team, I think, did an outstanding job in the context of that tsunami.
Have you made any investments in the technology portion of this and the infrastructure?
We have, and that's a big, I'm glad you raised it, that's a big open item with the feds, most importantly. Every state's unemployment benefit system is built on the back of the federal system, which is antiquated. So we're putting, we've got many millions in our current budget that we're investing in our own technology. But the game changer will be when the feds update their technology, and God willing, sooner than later.
One last portion of this that we all had to experience is those lines at the MVC governor. You know, are we investing more money? Are we investing more into technology to upgrade those systems at the MVC so that people can do more online and not have to take a better part of their day, you know, to stand in line at these centers to get, you know, normal business done?
Amen. The same comment about people who are frustrated with the Motor Vehicles Commission. I don't begrudge if you're frustrated. I'm frustrated on your behalf, and I won't be satisfied until we bat 1,000. But in fact, we've already done a lot of what you've just suggested. A lot of transactions are currently now done online. Again, they were hit with a tsunami. They had to close, and when they reopened, they had overwhelming demand. And it's not perfect, but we're investing in what we need to invest in. I think they're now doing 20 or 25% more transactions a week than they were doing before the pandemic. So that, I wouldn't call it a silver lining, but a reality is we've been able to do a lot more appointments online because we had no other choice. So that's proving to be an asset for us going forward.
Moving along to congestion pricing. This is a topic that really hits a nerve for a lot of people that commute into the city from New Jersey. Right now, the MTA's plan is to charge roughly $23 for anyone entering the city going past 60th Street. Now, as somebody who does this Monday through Friday on a weekly basis, because I am a resident of the great state of New Jersey, I'm thinking, okay, people are going to then use the Lincoln Tunnel as an option to hopefully avoid this, which, you know, then brings even more activity into that particular spot to get across the river. What are your intentions to help diffuse this issue?
So we've been clear on this one from the get-go, and I remain right where I've been. Congestion pricing is a conceptual matter. is something that we should be willing to embrace. It's good for the environment. Its intentions are smart. And when you see other places that have done it around the world, you have some real examples of success. Having said that, there's 3 requirements as it relates to New Jersey. The most important one of which is we will not allow our commuters going over the George Washington Bridge to get double taxed. That's just not going to happen. And we'll do whatever we can to prevent that from happening. As you rightfully point out, in the proposed or draft plan, if you commuted to New York on either the Holland or Lincoln tunnels, you're exempt. At the moment, at least, in the plan, the George Washington Bridge commuters would be double taxed. That's not going to happen. Secondly, we've asked for a seat at the table. And thirdly, in a perfect world, we'd get some of the proceeds from this pricing so that we could help invest in smart projects to help New Jersey commuters, maybe even an NJ Transit. But we're not going to allow any of our commuters to get double taxed.
And how do you guarantee that?
Because they need the Port Authority to execute this plan, and the governor of New Jersey. And again, I hope it doesn't come to this. I've got a very good relationship with the New York governor. The Port Authority is functioning at a very high level right now. But either governor has the ability to say no to any project, and this would be on that list. Is
that what's called the nuclear option that's been bandied about? Is that what that is?
That is it. That is vetoing the minutes of the Port Authority, which I don't have any desire to do, and I hope I won't have to. But if we have to, we will.
Well, you know, you bring up NJ Transit, hopefully as an option that more commuters will take advantage of. But right now, with rail delays, track problems, overcrowding, the longer commutes, the wonky schedules with the buses and the trains, and also, you know, just keeping those trains, trying to keep them clean and inviting to commuters. For some people, it could be a hard sell, and also in light of COVID. You know, a lot of people have concerns. More people are driving and using their own vehicles because of the pandemic. What are your thoughts on NJ Transit, where things stand now as far as the operating systems go, and what is your plan to fix it, and how will all of that be funded?
Yeah, it's getting fixed. So this was of the mess that we inherited almost 4 years ago in this state that had been undermanaged for so long and underachieving for so long. The mess within the mess was NJ Transit. It was an embarrassment. I just was at an event this morning. We have turned this thing around. Now, we're not done yet, but on-time performance is up. Cancellations are down. Customer satisfaction is up. It is a safe experience. None of that was true almost 4 years ago. I just spoke at a graduating class of engineers. We've added hundreds of engineers over the past 4 years. Why does that matter? Because we had allowed the engineering pool to go down so low that when one engineer called out sick for whatever reason, it would impact dozens of train schedules. Again, we're not in the end zone yet. We still have a ways to go, but everything we've accomplished that I've just mentioned, we've done without raising fares 1 penny. And I hope we can continue to do that. So NJ Transit is on the path to getting fixed. It was the #1 way back when. It was the most highly regarded mass transit system in America. And if it kills me, it's going to be that again before I leave.
One thing that we did ask our viewers to gain participation from them is we invited them to send in some questions. And one question one viewer did pose is, will the cost of living increases for the state pension ever be reinstated?
I would never say never, but it's something that was taken away before I got here. I would love in a perfect world to reinstate them. I know a lot of retirees out there have been crushed by that. It was a horrible, callous move. What we have chosen to do, Kristine, and for the reader who asked it, we have chosen to focus on getting the pension system back to health by making record payments each of the 4 years we've been here, including this year, the first full pension payment in 25 years. So if we keep doing that for a few more years and we get increased financial flexibility, I would love to be able to reinstate the COLA, but I can't commit to that today.
Another viewer expressed his concern about gun violence. New Jersey does have some of the toughest gun restriction rules in the country. What else can the state do?
Yeah, we do. So we have among, if not the strongest gun safety laws in America. The Giffords organization, Gabby Giffords organization, gives a report card out each year. We're, I think, one of only 2 states that got an A this year, so I'm proud of that. Secondly, we can tighten them further, and there's a package of gun legislation that hopefully we'll get to after the election. But thirdly, Kristine, the big game changer is national gun safety legislation. Why? Because as strong as New Jersey is, 85% of the confiscated crime guns in New Jersey come in from out of state. An iron pipeline up from places like Georgia and South Carolina. So we're not an island, unfortunately. We need national, federal gun safety legislation.
You know, for such a diversified state that New Jersey is, all of the gorgeous people that live there, all of the different backgrounds and religions that make up the melting pot of New Jersey, there are some racial disparities that still exist today. One of them, it's some of the most racially segregated schools in the country. And I have to ask, are you in favor of changing the tax code to help distribute some of those funds to those underfunded school systems?
Listen, we already do. I am proud of the fact that we fund public education at levels that have never been seen before in our state's history. We are the #1 ranked public education state in America, but the premise of your question is absolutely right. We still have too many inequities. Too much disparity in performance. So for years, and certainly for the 4 years I've been here, we have disproportionately invested in those communities, and it is working. It is absolutely working, but it is a work in progress. We're not yet where we need to be. My opponent wants to do something called flat funding, which would crush those communities, crush overwhelmingly Black and brown kids in our state and their families. We cannot do that. We have to continue to disproportionately fund the way we're funding because it's working, even though we still have a ways yet to travel.
Another racial disparity is blacks are still jailed at a rate of 12 times more than that of whites. Are you in favor of eliminating the mandatory minimum sentencing for all crimes in the state?
Certainly all nonviolent crimes, absolutely. And we've actually got a process that's underway as we speak. And you're right, we inherited when we came into office the largest white, non-white disparity of persons incarcerated of any state in America. And we have made a significant amount of progress, but we're not there yet. One of the things that we've done is we've allowed persons on parole or probation to vote again. We've expunged 362,000 low-end drug offenses. And I am strongly in favor of eliminating minimum mandatory sentences for nonviolent crimes. And again, there's a process underway as we speak, but that's something we're absolutely committed to.
I do want to touch on a few more topics. First, quickly, the environment. You know, you've made some major investments in wind power. You've also put some restrictions on building pipelines. But some environmentalists feel as though you need to do more. You have no moratorium on fossil fuel projects, they say. There is no set binding deadline to reduce greenhouse gas. And you need to intensify the effort for more electric cars and energy-efficient buildings. You have talked a lot about this during this campaign. What specifically can you tell us that you have down on paper as far as your plan and how we're going to go about paying for all of that, and what is the cost?
We have the most aggressive climate and green energy agenda of any state in America. So I respect the critics enormously. I'd ask them to find one other American state that has more going on right now than New Jersey. You rightfully point out offshore wind. We're going to be the offshore wind capital of the United States, if not the world. The strongest environmental justice law in America. Again, we're particularly Black and brown communities have been crushed by pollution over the years. We have an enormous amount of investment in both electric vehicles and the electric charging infrastructure, which underpins that. We deal with each of these energy projects one at a time. We call balls and strikes as fairly as we can call them. And I think we've got results that prove that. And we'll continue to do that.
Sports betting, Governor. The state made its first $1 billion, or rather had its first $1 billion month in sports betting. Where is that money going?
Well, the state makes some amount of money off of that, so that goes into the budget and what we fund and the programs that we fund. But the really interesting part of that, not only are we proud that we're the first state ever to cross $1 billion in a month, but just like offshore wind, while we love the clean energy, and I love the fact that folks are betting on sports in New Jersey, we want the industry to be disproportionately located in New Jersey. So we're going to be making a big chunk of these wind turbines in New Jersey, and the sports betting business likewise. We want to be the United States, if not global, ground zero for that industry, where the folks, the guts of the industry, reside and work in New Jersey. And we're on a good progress to do just that.
Are you in agreement to including college sports?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with New Jersey institutions of higher ed being part of that. I think we should still be overwhelmingly focused on the pros.
Okay. Regarding unemployment, we still have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. But we're faced with an interesting situation because there are jobs out there, but we're finding that people basically don't want to work. I mean, we've seen understaffed restaurants, we've seen understaffed, independent stores. I see help wanted signs almost everywhere I look in various downtown communities in New Jersey. How are we going to combat this? How are we going to get people back into the workforce?
It's a very good question, and it's a dilemma that even the most sophisticated economists are having trouble understanding. Our unemployment rate is higher than it should be, but it's coming down and it will come down. We were at a record low unemployment rate before the pandemic, and I want us to get back down there as we recover from this pandemic, and I'm optimistic we will. I think there are a number of reasons, Kristine. The one that is getting more airtime of late seems to be one that makes sense to me, which is folks are working in a job and they say, wait a minute, why am I, you pick it, why am I washing dishes for $12 an hour when I could walk down the street and get paid $18 an hour to do X? I think there's a lot of that going on. We just put a program out a couple of weeks ago, and I like the early evidence from it, called Return and Earn, which gives the employee $500 in their first check to come back to work. But it also gives the small business $10,000 for training and workforce development for that same employee, so they can upskill the employee to a higher job level. That feels like early on, that looks like it's got a good amount of momentum behind it. If we see the evidence, we'll put a lot more money behind that. We'll put more money to small businesses than any state in America, other than California and New York, who are a lot bigger than we are, to our small businesses and try to get them back on their feet. But we're going to have to stay at it. This is a dilemma that I think goes away, but it's real, and it's still with us.
You promised to legalize marijuana in the state of New Jersey during your first campaign, and that did happen. However, we are seeing some communities that don't want to allow marijuana sales. Why is that, do you think?
It depends on the community. I respect the decision. I think you're going to have a lot more who are willing to participate in it. And we're setting the industry parameters up as we speak. Equity is a huge objective of the commission that's setting it up, and of me personally. We want to make sure that this is an industry that looks like the great diversity of our state that it will serve. But listen, if a community decides that they don't want to go that route, I don't hold it against them. That's their decision. But I think we're going to have more than enough communities that will be participating.
And do you feel as though that there's going to be an impact on the quality of life? Some people are concerned about that.
Listen, we're not inventing marijuana. So it's in our state, and the state doesn't regulate it, it doesn't control it, and it doesn't protect our kids. So while I got behind supporting this because of social justice, the fact of the matter is the state will be the gatekeeper. It'll be taken out of the hands of disparate interests and put into a regulated industry. It's 21 and up So there'll be a way, God willing, to better protect our kids. And I think for all those reasons, particularly given if we do it in an equitable way, at the end of the day, this is a positive step in a big way as opposed to the opposite.
Governor, I'm running out of time, but I have one last question. When you ran for governor of New Jersey 4 years ago, this was the first public office that you ran for and you won. Looking now ahead, should you win this re-election, you would be part of a very few select, because no Democrat has ever been reelected governor since 1977. So it would be quite something should you be reelected. After that, what are your aspirations? Will there be a run for president?
No, there will not be. I'm 1,000% focused on New Jersey. And I mentioned this in the context, say, of NJ Transit. Our work is not done. I'm incredibly proud of the progress we've made. We have turned this state around. It really is sunrise in New Jersey, and you can measure that by many different dimensions, but we still have work to do. That's why I'm running again. So I'm going to be right here in Jersey with my head down and my sleeves rolled up.
All right, Governor, thank you for your time today. We do appreciate it, and it's good to see you healthy.
Thank you for having me, Kristine.
And do stay tuned for my candidate conversation with Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to go out and vote. I'm Kristine Johnson.